All right, folks, so how are you guys doing? Everyone good? Who's having a good time? Yeah? Who understands the essence of an instant induction now? Just the essence of how to do the mechanics, as well as some of the nuances you'll need on the streets to do with random strangers. And don't worry, we'll carry on adding nuances as we go along. But for now, it's a nice little solid base because, believe it or not, after this session is a lunch break. You know what happens to lunch? We're going to go and hypnotize people. It'll be a lot of fun. So do you want to play with them a bit?
Yeah, as I said, we've placed you right in the, not quite in the center of it, but we've started with an induction. And what happens prior to that induction is really important as well. Some of the time, I mean, some of the guys in here this morning have said, oh, I've seen you on the Trilby connection. Really? Bang! And they're out. There is no approach, there is no setup, okay? But most of the time, when you're approaching strangers and lay people, you want to give a little bit of intro, and it doesn't have to take half an hour, it's not a lecture. But normally I will use 1 or 2 exercises prior to actually doing this kind of induction. They're things that most of you in the room will be familiar with, and some of them are kind of helped along with physical principles that you might also understand. So we're going to start with 2 or 3 of these exercises that I'll typically use. And again, even if you know them, I'd really encourage you to pay attention to them again, because you're going to get a lot of value out of them once you start to get this idea of testing and getting feedback. All right, so we'll start with the easiest. I'll show you a couple of ways of using it, and then we're going to break it down step by step, just the same, do it again. We'll then practice another technique, and we'll break it down in the same fashion. So if you're ready, again, just place your feet flat on the floor for me, if you would. It's not compliance, it's just because you'll feel more comfortable that way. And then can you place your hands on your lap? I'm going to give you some instructions. I want you to follow them. If I ask you to imagine something, do your best to imagine it. If I ask you to get a feeling for something, I want you to try and find it. Okay, so let's just start like this. Can you place your hands out in front of you? Straight out, and the person in front. Clasp your hands together nice and tight so your palms are together and your thumbs are crossed on top, like you kind of crush a piece of coal in your hand, that kind of tightness. Bend your elbows like you're making a desperate prayer. This is probably where the point where you want to make one. And then put your first fingers up, if you would, about 1 inch apart, like this. About 1 inch apart. If you think that's 1 inch, your husband's been lying to you. About 1 inch apart. Just look at the gap between your fingers. Stare at it, nowhere else, don't look at me. In a moment, they will touch like they're magnetized, like they're 2 powerful magnets in your tips of your fingers. When they touch, I'd like you to just allow your eyes to close. So keep concentrating on the idea. They're magnets, they will move automatically. They'll start to twitch like that, that's right. Don't fight it, imagine it. When they touch, just close your eyes and relax and just go inside. Just like other times and places where you've had an opportunity to have nothing to do for a time. That's right. And then just open your eyes. Excellent. That shows me you can concentrate. Right? That's exercise number 1. The vast majority of people I hypnotize on the street are hypnotized at the end of that exercise. That's when, I don't tell them that, but that's how it tends to turn out. Okay? Let me just give you the same exercise, but I'll just take it one tiny step further and then we'll practice it. Okay? You can come up here if you like. Give me a round of applause. There you go, man. Anthony, sorry, what's your name? Elmer, just face this way if you would. You happy to be a demonstration subject just for a moment? Mm-hmm. Place your feet together then. Excellent. Now I'm going to give you some instructions. I want you to follow these instructions. If I ask you to imagine something, do your best to imagine it. If I ask you to find a feeling, then that's what I want you to do. Okay? Do you happen to have family, children, anything like that? No. No? Okay. This is what I'd like you to do. Place your hands out in front of you. Clasp them together really tight. Palms together, thumbs crossed on top as tight as you can. Bend your elbows like you're making a desperate prayer. Put your first fingers up about 1 inch apart. Look at the gap between them, because in a moment they will touch. And when they touch, just close your eyes and just go inside with your eyes closed. What I'd like you to do is think about something you would love to do, something you'd love to achieve. And when such an idea comes to mind, just nod your head for me. Now, if you're not there already, I want you to step into that body and be there in that moment, seeing what you see. That's right, standing how you stand, feeling what you feel. And as you feel that, and as you listen to me, your hands, your fingers are becoming stuck and bolted together, absolutely glued together, stuck fast. Again, holding that feeling, and as you listen to me, when you realize that they're stuck, just raise your hands up a little higher so that I understand. Just raise them up toward the ceiling so that I understand. That's right, you're doing brilliantly. I know it's a strange feeling, but you find the harder you try and separate them, the tighter they will stick. And this is going to start to seem funny to you for some unknown reason. It's going to put a smile on your face, that's right. That smile can wrap around that good feeling and be sent and washed through every cell in your body, every cell in your system, and all the space between them. Now hold on to all the good feelings and just open your eyes. You can relax your hands. Of course you can separate them. Thanks for doing that, Elmer.
Thank you.
Cheers. We'll see you later. Okay, so we're going to start with the first version. Okay, it's exactly the same thing, except I'm adding on a step and I'm actually testing my work. I'm sticking my neck out. You know, I could worry about that and think it's the start of the course. I'm going to get egg on my face. What if he pulls his hands apart? No one will believe I'm a real hypnotist. But I'm not going to worry about that because I've long since stopped caring. And so will you after this lunchtime session. It doesn't matter. And one of the most liberating parts of this training is getting over times when it goes pop. And you say, oh, cool. Put your feet together and you carry on and do something else, or you pick somebody else, okay? For now, your goal is just to make people's fingers come together, right? So do you want to break it down?
Sure. Okay, guys, so everyone stand up, please. Please place the feet parallel to each other. Just make sure you check on the ground. They're roughly hip widths apart. And put your hands up like this. Was that an easy set of instructions to follow? Yep. Okay, find 3 people and do that with them. Off you go.
How many of you are still taking control? How many of you are still introducing yourselves? Turn, put the person on the spot, place your hands out. This is just more instructions for them to follow and comply with. So deliver them in the same fashion, same attitude.
Consider this suggestion experiment we're about to do as a covert form of an instant induction. Does that make sense to you guys? Mm-hmm. Which means everything you did this morning still counts. It's just it'll look a little bit different. Make sense? Yep. Okay, so you can all get someone to stand somewhere and put their hands out like this, right? Can you do that? Everyone do this for a moment? Say, yes, master. Yes. Oh, I got it. All right, hands out. Clasp the hands together, bring them up so they're in a comfortable position. Is that easy to do? Yep. Okay, find another person and do that very quickly. Okay, how did I go? Easy? Okay, so a couple of things here. Number 1, remember you're the hypnotist, which means everything you've done from stand over here with your feet like this or feet like this, those are all suggestions. Are you still paying attention to how they're responding, yes? Are you still noticing that some people are responding a bit more fully, others more hesitantly, yes? So everything still counts. Now, we're going to start adding more layers in terms of what you're doing for suggestions. For example, what is the purpose of this? You want to get their hands tightly clasped. It's going to help you in a moment. So remember what Anthony said? Crush coal. It's like crushing some coal. You don't have to steal all those lines.
I don't think I've ever said that before. But
exactly.
By all means say it. The point is that with a group, I want to make it a little bit clearer. As I said to you there, you delivered every line perfectly, but it was relaxing. It was, can you place them out and make them comfortable like that? You'll end up with people like this. Now, putting the whole sticking of the fingers aside, we'll come to that. Getting these fingers to come together is easy because it's mostly based on the physiology of the body. Okay, right. That's the little secret. However, they will not come together if their hands are loose, unless they're very suggestible. Okay, so that's, in a way, it's a stronger test. But I want to put all of this in the setup. Can you do this? Can you hold them nice and tight? Mind your rings, mind your nails, that kind of stuff if they've got jewelry on. But that implies do it tight. That's why I'm asking you to be careful. Squeeze them nice and tight. Bend your elbows like you're making a desperate prayer. You know, it's at that point, if I'm one-to-one with someone, I'll just squeeze their hands. Not to the point of, you know, being painful, but a good squeeze, like I'm trying to keep them together. Squeeze them together nice and tight. I want to make sure there's no gap in here. Place your fingers up about an inch apart, which is where I think the stage we're at now. Now, again, because of the physiological reasons, you can see it's actually difficult for Igor to keep them apart. That's not just because of my hypnotic powers. It's because you can't keep them apart if your hands are squeezed together. So if you can relax now. If you've put the tension in and then put the fingers apart, they're kind of spring-loaded and ready to go. So an important next step when you get the fingers apart is to make the very next utterance you make the goal. What's going to happen? In a moment, your fingers will touch. So I'll say, pull your fingers an inch apart, look at the gap between them, because in a moment, your fingers will touch. If they get there before you've said that, kind of pointless.
Let me just re-emphasize what Anthony's saying there, because this is so important. I don't know about those of you, has anyone here experimented with this like in public on their own, right? Have you ever had the same experience that I had when I first doing this, which says, okay, put your hands out like this, they'll start coming to, oh, bugger, right? In other words, if the effect happens before the suggestion, usually people don't realize that something magical has happened, which means as soon as the hands come out, you want to get that idea out there as soon as possible that those fingers will touch. Now, at that point, any point it actually happens, if it happens within milliseconds, you're an absolute hypno genius. If it takes a few minutes, then you're still a great hypnotist. Does that make sense? So it does not matter what happens next, as long as you get that idea out there. And the key thing, as Anthony was emphasizing, is palms. Everyone try this for a second. Put your hands together. Push together tightly. Lift just your index fingers apart, so they're a little bit apart. Do you notice the tendency for them all to come together? And this is not even with any particular extra tension. Now, whilst you're here, just relax your palms. And you notice how those hands, those fingers, stay apart much more easily. Do you notice that? Now, if you do the same thing with your hands clasped, clasp your hands together, push your fingers together tightly, right? Now, open the fingers apart. Do you feel how much resistance there is? Your fingers want to come together. Now, just relax your hands. I notice that desire almost disappears. Make sense? So those are the things you don't want to give them. You don't want to give them that room where it's like, oh yeah, I could be here forever. You're loading the deck, stacking the deck in your favor so that you can start transforming the moment into something truly hypnotic. Does that make sense to everyone? So what are the steps again? Okay, please stand over here. Everyone feet apart, shoulder width apart. Everyone can do that? Everyone can do that? No? Okay, put your hands out like this. Clap them together. I like the idea of clapping because it creates energy of force. Now, squeeze the hands together nice and tight. Push them together. If you want to use a metaphor, like it's something, some simile, imagine a vice pressing together. Imagine a giant just pushing those hands together, make them to a fist, a block of concrete, break them up like this. Fingers apart, squeeze the hands tight, fingers apart. Try and hold them apart because in a moment they will touch. Do you see how I've got it out there? Right? At this point, it's only a matter of time. Does that make sense to everyone? Now, if you want to add language after that, by all means do so. All I really care about is you get to the point where hands are squeezed, fingers are open, and they have the idea inside their mind that those fingers will shortly be touching. Does that make sense?
That's it. It's just one idea. Yep.
Can you suggest that their fingers are going to be drawn together by telling them beforehand?
So the question is, can you suggest the whole idea of fingers touching and so on by telling them beforehand? Sure, it's just a question of if you can make it smooth within the sequence of what you're discussing, great. If it interferes with the flow, then it gets in the way a little bit.
What I'd say is you could do that, and it's fine. It's a good habit to get into, to say in a moment, I'm going to do this and this will be the result. That's a good thing to do. But because this is so reliable, I mean, you know, Paul, statistics...
There is nothing you can... Really, there have to be like double-jointed weird
really is so reliable.
Things going on. So
typically I will do this, and then I'll do the same exercise essentially, but with their hands. Okay, so when I do this, I say, let me show you something interesting. Bang, within 10 seconds that exercise is finished. Okay, without any rehearsal. The second one, I say, look, I'm going to ask you to concentrate again in the same way, but to use your imagination, I'll ask you to close your eyes. You'll place your hands out like this, imagining two magnets. They will pull together and touch. Don't pretend and don't fight. Imagine. Okay, so in the second one, I'll typically rehearse. But again, you don't need to, because the vast majority of people can succeed at that too.
Okay.
The only reason I asked that is because I notice when I do that, my fingers go together so quickly.
Okay, so Michael is saying that the reason he's asking if he can put the suggestion before the hand spread is because he noticed that when he did it, his hands come together so quickly, it's almost impossible to get suggestion in. Hence, you have to be fast. So just play with it a little bit, and you'll find your own rhythm. Ultimately, here's the key, folks. Do not spend too much time on it. It just happens really quickly. If you're trying to over-elaborate on things, then you're kind of...
This is a 15-second exercise. Right. And again, just to come back to it, right, if you were struggling with that, and I appreciate some people do struggle to get their fingers apart, the cheesy jokes, okay, are a reason, or there is a reason for those jokes. One is to get people to relax, but one is to get them in the right position. And this lady's fingers were this far apart. It's pointless me beginning until they're a bit further apart. So I'll say about an inch apart. Sometimes I'll actually hold them apart. But as I said, as soon as I get that, and I get you locked on visually, I will say, because in a moment they will come together and touch. I haven't said anything about magnets or wires or pulling or tension or squeeze. It's just because in a moment they will touch. 2 seconds later, they're like, oh, that was weird. Good, that shows me you can concentrate. I don't talk about it, I just plow on.
You can add on all those things afterwards. So if you're afraid that if you see them coming to this point, they're coming together too quickly, say, no, really open them. So go ahead and do that. Put your hands together like this, squeeze them tight, open your hands, really open them, really open them. No, really open them, that's right. Now, in a moment they will touch, coming closer and touch.
And that's fine.
You see?
That is enough time to do this exercise. I'm not looking for the person to be bowled over, impressed, wow, you're the world's greatest hypnotist. Trust me, some people will think that when you do this exercise. It constantly surprises me how much value there is in this. But I use this on pretty much every single person I encounter on the street, every group, every stage hypnosis gig I do this and I turn it into a lock, because there is just so much juice in it, and you can get a lot from it.
Does that help you? Yeah. So just really take control of your subject, and if the conditions aren't ideal, make them ideal. Yeah. Everyone can do this? Really, it takes what? How long does it take to do this whole thing from start to finish? Anyone? 10, 15 seconds, right? So if I gave you a whole minute, that means you could do at least 5 people, right? Off you go. So, do you enjoy that? There's a quick question here first.
Yeah, just, when we're doing it.
Let me just give this to you, because then everyone can hear the question as well.
I just noticed when you're doing it and facing them, suddenly you're moving back because their arms are out and your arms are out, and it's kind of a little hard to hear. So, do you do it sideways?
Do whatever you feel is right. You're the performer now.
You need to be heard.
Yeah. So if you need to stand next to them, stand next to them. Yeah. If you don't, if you put your hands down, that's fine. The point is, start playing with these things, because there are a lot of variables, and I'll happily tell you what I do, and Anton will happily tell you what he does. But please do not make the mistake of thinking that's the only way to do it. Your instincts are correct, so just follow them. Does that make sense? And by the way, I welcome any questions at any level, at any point in this seminar. Just please accept the possibility that from time to time we'll put it right back on you, because you will have instinct, and I want you to develop those instincts, because neither one of us will be here past the weekend to carry on doing this with you. Does that make sense? So you had a great instinct, so feel free to ask, feel free to check, feel free to see what we would do, and realize we'll probably put it right back on you, because you need to problem solve as well. Make sense?
And again, this is part of what we're going to get into in breaking into people's physical space. Okay, I'd normally start here, so in this position, place your hands out in front of you, because he's still completely got all of his personal space. Okay, and just clasp them together nice and tight, bend your elbows like you're making a desperate prayer. I'm going to touch at this point. Okay, put your fingers up about an inch apart, look at the gap between your fingers. Now I'm here, now I'm slap bang in position again. I can see the audience, I know I can be heard, I know I can control this as much as I want, and I can get my feedback. So you can move around, but most importantly is you need to be heard, and secondly, you're trying to get to the point where that's acceptable, where you can just talk in this person's ear and they haven't even noticed you've gone from there to there, because
especially in a loud environment, you need to make sure that you're heard. Does that help you guys? Was that an easy thing to do?